It is 1 PM on Wednesday, March 11th. Special City Council meeting, budget workshop. I'd like to call the meeting in order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, you mind doing roll call?
Absolutely. Councilmember Cohen. Councilmember Myers. Here. Councilmember Streetman.
Here.
Councilmember Bogosian.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce is here but not in the room. Councilmember Carroll. Councilmember Miller. Here. Mayor Pounds.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. Discussion is first draft of the fiscal 27 budget. Deborah or Douglas, y'all want to, some of y'all have some slides or?
Yes, so I will start with just kind of the first few on our agenda, the assumptions, key initiatives, and then I'm going to hand it over to Deborah for the detail of each. If we start page 2 of the packet, we're going to start with just high-level assumptions that are throughout this budget, building this budget. And I would also just say that staff has about 10 items that we really need direction from City Council on. And if you all would, we could talk about them as we go through the assumptions, or we could come back to that list of 10 items. Either way you want to proceed is fine. But I would just say if you hit one as we go through it that you want to talk about, just let's pause and talk about it. Starting off, revenue assumptions. We are assuming a 2% increase of tourism revenue, that's municipal, state, and beach funds. That is based on the preceding 12 months. Hospitality, as we talked about last night, is a little bit slower than that, so we are assuming 1.5% increase in those. Business license revenues, this is residential, short-term rental licenses, building permits, parking, we are assuming a 1% increase in those revenues. Insurance licenses and public utilities, we are assuming 3% increase on those. And other various forms of revenue, we're assuming between 0.5% and 2% based on our prior 12 months.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
What is our franchise tax or business or license tax for public utilities? What percent of?
I think it's 1% for Dominion,
No,
It's 5, isn't it?
our Dominion and our utilities.
I don't know.
We can get that back.
Yeah.
We get that information to you. You recall it being 5. I thought it was 1. But we'll let you know.
I don't think it's 1. It's kind of controversial because we feel like that, we're getting something for it, but we just pass it on to the taxpayers, and they pay it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tax.
It's
But
definitely a tax.
I was just curious what percent it is of the energy bill.
Well, I think there's 2 categories. There's like Dominion, and then there's the cable.
Yes.
Right, there's two, that's right. But
And I think
don't
I think
know
we
the
have one on
percentage.
water and sewer as well, don't we?
Is there one?
I don't think
I don't
so.
get anything from water and sewer.
I thought-
I get something from Dominion and Comcast.
I thought some communities were actually doing cell phones as well.
Yeah, we don't get any telecom franchise fees?
There is telecom that comes through MASC.
Okay,
Yeah,
if we
that
get a
is-
breakdown of what
Yeah.
comes into that, that'd be helpful for me at least.
Do that. Operating expenses assumptions.
Douglas, can I ask a
Yes.
question on the building permits? Didn't we have a one-time, was it this year that we had the one-time big pop for the,
Of
I think
last year.
that was a preceding year.
that was
So not-
FY '25, not FY '26?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Operating expenses assumptions, we are assuming an increase of 1 to 3% of prior 12 months. We've talked a lot about the Dominion costs. We're budgeting for 13% increase on electric and gas. Well, electric. Next slide, this is this slide has three of the points we need direction on. So currently in our budget, we are building out what they've kind of called the uncapped solution provided by Evergreen. We've also plugged into that amount, we've added to that amount the fringe costs that would be associated with that solution, as well as the overtime that would be compounded onto that. So that kind of permeates through all parts of the budget. Also in the budget, we have three new positions. One is a resilience officer that's in our current year budget. Additionally, there are 2 police officers. So this is one we touched on last night. Admin committee felt like it would be prudent to pause on the resilience officer and proceed with the 2 police officers, but all 3 are currently in our budget, so we need direction there.
And
Currently,
is a corresponding reduction in overtime now added in there based on adding to 2 police officers?
I do not. Deborah?
Corresponding overtime?
So we would be adding police officers that would reduce
Oh, that would
overtime.
reduce overtime.
I don't think we have a corresponding
No, we do
reduction.
not.
Yeah, we
Do
should-
not.
We should get that in there at some point.
Okay. We are including a 2.8% cost of living allowance and a 3% merit increase. The point was made at admin that we are, the way it's built would be the Evergreen solution adjustments in there. Right on the heels of that, typically in January, there would be cost of living and merit increases. And then in theory, so there's kind of incremental pay adjustments throughout the year based on this budget. Major initiative expenses. And there are, and I think they're all shades of the same number, but we have beach renourishment is obviously a big ticket item in there. The number on this slide, I think, is only the sand. And I believe that later in your presentation and in the budget, is the cost of the project itself plus soft costs. So that would be construction management. So you do have 2 different numbers in the presentation today. One is just construction, one is construction plus soft costs. Also, currently in our budget is $3.9 million for a drainage project at Palm Boulevard between 38th and 38th and 41st, as well as other kind of smaller scale projects. We have talked internally about the feasibility of only doing that Palm Boulevard project when we have grant funding that becomes available to us. We've talked to Thomas and Hutton about the feasibility of phasing that project. They indicate it's very easy to phase, so it could be done that way. So that's one that I think we feel like if we need to delay an expense, that would be probably the easiest and largest one to delay. We have a ladder truck in this year's budget for $2.5 million. That ladder truck, I think, is fully ordered and in the pipeline to come to us, so.
Is that in here as debt, or is that in here as cash?
It's in here as debt.
That's debt, yes.
We have a fire rescue boat.
Douglas, real quick, we've got a grant request in for that, 2 different, at the state level and the federal level for the
Yes.
fire truck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I would say there are very few grants other than those that, well, there's no grants that haven't been actually awarded that are in our budget. I think we just put the 1.5 in from the state for the beach, but none of the other money that we've requested, a lot of money, just haven't heard back on really any of it other than that $1.5 million from the PRT for the beach.
Does the debt include a millage increase to cover it?
It does not.
Done, okay.
We have a public works loader in this budget, $220,000. We have 7 just regular regular vehicles, either pickup trucks, SUVs, or regular vehicles, 7 vehicles spread across 3 departments, police, fire, and building.
And Douglas, real
Yes.
quick, on the fire and police, we've got requests in for those as well,
Yes,
right?
yes, we do.
Grant request, or state budget,
For the fire?
fire and police.
Okay.
I think that we have, Deborah, we removed one of the vehicles based on
Donated vehicle.
having just accepted a donated vehicle at your last meeting, so it was 8, it's come down to 7. We have an AI traffic signal in here as an expense that the Public Safety Committee has been working on. We have dune walkover in here. That's another one that we've requested state funding for. We've been very, very lucky in getting awarded those requests. That seems to be a popular item for people wanting to make grants to the beach. That seems to be a popular one to give grants for. We have bulkhead recoding in here for $450,000. This is an item that was just in our 10-year plan. It has come up on that 10-year plan, so it, in theory, is due. We do want to do, so we want to verify that it needs it at this point. We have not done that, but it came up on our work plan as an item to be done this year. So we have that included. Marina dredging, this is another one we talked about. We talked a little bit about last night. We are including $700,000 in this year's budget. That is based on the pricing we just got back, and this price would allow the city to pay a slightly elevated price to go at it alone if we chose. And again, there's $1.5 million that we are already holding from a state budget allocation for that project.
And so Douglas, could
Douglas, on
we,
that one, I think we talked at the facilities meeting that we were asking if you could check on moving the additional $800,000 to another project that was related. And I think I did see something in here, so were you successful in
Yes.
getting that answer?
Yes.
So we were able to move the 800?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we have heard that it would be agreeable from the state's perspective to move that to another dredging operation.
Which could be the beach renourishment?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
So even the beach?
Yes.
but again, I mean, a little bit of a shell game, some, I mean, you could use it for the recoding if we needed to, I guess, as well, since it's marina related.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, I think that we would be okay to use it either for marina or for dredging. I think they're either kind of,
You'd still
either would be
have-
ced enough to.
Yeah, still have some left over if we
Yeah.
went that route, but, yeah.
But right now, it appears that it's in
John,
here
come on.
as, it appears that it's in here under beach renourishment. You have $800,000
That's
applied to
correct.
the beach renourishment.
Yes.
for-
That's where it is now, but council can make a decision
Right.
on wherever they want it to go.
The Marina Restaurant Parking Project, we've also talked a little bit about that. We estimate that's going to be $500,000. We have it in the budget as the city paying for that project and continuing to accept the overage from the restaurant. There has been a recommendation to take that project out of our budget and assign it to the tenants, and in exchange for doing that, forego 2 years of their overage payments. So that's another one on our list that we need direction from council, how you want to handle that.
Douglas, if I remember correctly, though, the overage is also in our budget, correct, Deborah? I mean, we
It
include.
is currently, yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're counting the
We already
revenue, but we're
account for
also
that.
counting the expense. There is one that we do neither. We don't have the expense, but we also don't get the revenue for 2 years.
Got it. Okay.
And result is the same for the budget, more or less, right?
Yeah, I think as we've contemplated it, it's generally a wash financially.
Well, but that depends on the performance of the restaurant.
That's correct.
I mean,
If,
that's making
we're
an
assuming that their
assumption.
performance would be similar to what it's been. So those are all the assumptions. I don't know if we want to just keep going through any of those, if we want to pause and talk through any, either way is fine. Next for us, we talk internally about revenue growth options. And these are a list that you all have seen probably every budget year. This is specifically, this iteration came through the work, Scott and the Beach Ad Hoc Committee, when we were kind of digging into that at that committee. So this is really a duplication of that effort. I think we did change I think we updated some of the amounts. So these would be things that if council were to want to increase revenue, these would be, first are the city-controlled options. First would be a 15% across-the-board increase to all of our licenses, permits, and parking fees. We have steadily increased short-term rental license fees and business license fees. I don't think we did it last year, but I think last year we did the permit fees. So we've just done the permit fees last year, but those are levers that the city has access to. We have that group talked about there are different ways that the city could raise revenue from property owners. One is a user fee, which would be a flat fee not tied to the value of your property. So city could do a $200 user fee per dwelling, be roughly $1 million. Another option would be a millage adjustment. So same, you're increasing basically a property owner's tax bill, but one is a flat amount across all properties, and one is tied to your property values.
Can I maybe just add a little flavor to the two items? I think the user fee, there was some discussion too about how do you distribute, if we were even to entertain it, how do you distribute it maybe a little more equitably instead of just a flat fee across. But the other one on the millage, if I remember, when we were looking at this, these were like to quantify the max opportunity that was available. It wasn't this this was a multi-year clawback, as I recall. Was that not is this a one-year millage increase? Because I think too, with the way the CPI and the population growth is right now, I'm not sure if this is an extremely big number anymore. We got no population growth and our CPI is down in the low twos, so we may want to evaluate the quantification of that.
I think it is a
So-
clawback, isn't it?
I thought that was a 3-year clawback.
So the sheet that I placed on everyone's area, this shows what it would be if we did the recapture.
On a total base, Deborah, or just per property?
This is based on, well, it should say assessed value, but
Appraised, yeah, this shows on appraised, but I think what the question is that if you add up, let's say we did a mill across the board, what does that equate to on the total property base? And I think that's the number, and again, I don't think we're going to be clawing back 3 years, even if we were to even consider a millage increase, but we may want to know what is what is a millage increase impact across our property base? That might be a
just
better.
1 mil.
Isn't that 330?
One mill's 338,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's 338,000, and so this was definitely a multi-year clawback.
Yeah.
Yes, this is.
The 3-year would be 936.
Yes, the
Yep.
3 years would be 936.
Max.
Can I have a couple questions? This user fee, what does that look like? Is that like a bill from the
Yes.
city?
Yeah, it is tacked into is added to your property bill. So it is exactly like our NPDES. Right now, your property tax bill has and I think it's $72, but it's a line on your tax bill. It is, it's a set amount. Doesn't matter what the value is of your home.
It
It's just a
says-
set amount.
It says fee. It will say fee on the tax
Yes.
bill?
We
Yes.
could say whatever we wanted it to say.
Well, no,
We
this is,
feed-
this is important.
I mean, we
Yeah, I-
feed the county.
This is
I think it
important.
is a user fee.
If fees are not tax deductible, taxes are.
Yeah, I think it is I could verify that, but I believe it is a user fee. I believe it's a fee.
Well, unless the law's changing. A lot of people don't itemize anymore, but if you did, that wouldn't be tax deductible, as I understand the code. Also, I had about a 15% increase question about that on parking license and permit fees. And this is a 15% across the board.
Yes, that's
The
all. we're
short-term
doing.
rentals,
Yes.
they paid like over 400% higher base rate than in every other business on the island. So they would get another 15% tacked on top of that.
That's correct.
Plus their incremental fees are twice what every other business is on the island.
That's correct. This is, for simple math, we just took 15% across the entire spectrum. If council wanted, again, to your point, short-term rentals have been increased over the years. Last year, we just did we just did building permits. So if you all wanted to shuffle that policy around, you
I
certainly
don't think we can
could,
afford to, but I think people need to be aware of it.
but this is just a
That they're
universal
taxed at a
15%.
much higher rate than everybody else.
That is true.
Wasn't there, didn't we, when we were talking about that last time, we talked about this, some discussion of doing some audit, and I believe there was even the opportunity that Charleston County did something like that with the building or with business licenses, and did that ever go anywhere?
We have not actively, we do have the ability to audit properties. We really don't have the staff to do those audits. The county has indicated previously a willingness to help for a percentage of any gains that come back. I'm assuming that they would still be agreeable to doing that. We haven't done it in many years, but we could.
But I don't think we've ever done it. We talked about it a lot over the years.
I mean, if that's something we can get this county to do for us, and we only pay them if we end up getting money out of it, I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't.
Yeah, when it's done, it is, the county does do it, but they do, and they do it for themselves. It's not a thing where they audit, they spot check 10 of the 10, and it's kind of sending the message that, it's a thing, but it's not really, from my perspective, a huge revenue producer. It's a tool to keep people honest, but
Right,
I don't know that we would see a large revenue boost immediately from the audits, but there could be
But there's the policing aspect of it.
Yes.
that People don't speed because there could be
it could be
a speed trap.
the effect of a speed trap slowing traffic down
This is just for property
Not that
taxes
that's
or
the
for
only
business?
reason not to speed.
for business licenses.
Douglas, I think this may be on your next slide, but the user fee, the current state law only allows a flat amount.
That-
We can't do a graduated amount,
That's correct.
closer to the ocean, away from the ocean, whatever.
If I can
right?
go back to that user fee, so I'm looking at my tax bill, which for some reason I carry around with me now. It's a residential user fee of $150, so that would be on, $200 then would go on top of that, what's showing on the tax bill
That's
now,
correct.
and it would go to $350.
That's
Go ahead, and you,
Do you have your NPDS? Does it say fee or does it say tax? Does it say stormwater? Stormwater or NPDES?
No. Oh, yeah, stormwater.
Is it fee?
Yeah, it's a fee,
Yeah.
$72, yeah.
and Douglas, the 200 was just pulled out of the air. I mean, we can make
That's
it
correct.
whatever we wanted. Yeah.
Didn't know what-
But the point there is it's a flat fee.
Based on current law.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it capped at 200?
No.
I thought that was.
Pick a
the
number.
max.
No.
Yeah, it has to go into a restricted fund. I mean, just like our stormwater, that fee goes to a fund that is, solely dedicated to that use.
I was just asking, what's the I mean, they're both taxes, right, that and a mill increase. What's the advantage of doing that versus a mill increase?
The thought would be, does a valuable house, is it philosophically correct for a valuable property owner to pay more to use the beach than somebody with a less valuable house? Are they impacting the beach at the same level And if so, there would be a rationale for having it be a flat fee. If you felt like it's just a philosophical question as to how you establish that amount, but that would be the basis. The stormwater user fee, the theory there is that the pipes being cleaned, the stormwater work that happens to prevent silt from, it doesn't matter the value of your house, it's just a flat rate evenly divided.
And this was calculated based on if you live on Front Beach or Sparrow Drive, you'd have the same fee.
That's exactly right.
Because that's current tax.
Current, yeah.
Yeah,
That stormwater fee, if I remember correctly, was doubled a few years back.
that's correct. More than a few, but
Does it also apply to vacant lots? Not that we have a lot of them, but.
I think it would.
does. Okay.
Yeah,
Every parcel.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
look at a property tax bill.
yeah. So next slide is state-controlled, and these are the, we do, and the Beach Ad Hoc Committee spent a lot of time analyzing these, looking at these. I think we have felt like these would be great tools to be in our toolbox. We have requested that our lobbyists pursue changes that would allow us to do these. So I would say it's not anything that would be in our near-term purview, but with time and a change to the state code, they could be possible. Things that we've asked to be considered: a real estate transfer fee. This is one that Town of Hilton Head has already. They're the only ones in the state of South Carolina that have access to that. As you know, private communities can do this. Wild Dunes does this. They get a percentage of each property that sells.
I know we have our lobbyists working on that. Have we looked into getting other municipality? I mean, if Hilton Head's the only one, I would think that other municipalities would be interested in that and see that as a missed opportunity. I'm just wondering if, if you had 10 different communities that were lobbying together for the same thing, I feel like we'd have a little more strength in numbers.
So you have your beach advocates lobbyist.
Well, but
And
I'm not even thinking, it doesn't necessarily even have to be the beach.
No,
I
no,
mean, it
but
could
I mean,
be-
that's 10, 12 communities that are
But are
like-minded.
they actively pursuing this also?
through the beach advocates lobbyist firm.
But like we as a community, I mean, we have instructed our lobbyists personally to be, I'm just wondering if there's anything more that we could be doing, if we could get other communities to start thinking about this. And I mean, to me, it seems like the
Are we talking about adding to the eight tax, Katie, or to move the promotional aid?
no, to allow
Real
the
estate
real estate
transfer fee.
transfer.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like, especially the fact that Hilton Head has it, like to have one city in the entire state that allows it, it seems like a,
Douglas, has anything been pre-filed in regards to anything on this page?
Not that I'm aware of.
If it's not pre-filed by now, the chances of it getting through this year are very slim.
Yeah.
Zero.
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah,
These
not
are-
a-
Next 5 years.
10-year items,
Yeah.
yeah.
but just to be,
So the point is, it's not immediate relief.
no, it's not.
Nothing on this page.
Well, and to Katie's point too, I mean, you've got like Mount Pleasant here adjacent, they're not part of the Beach Advocates group, Charleston, Hanahan, Goose Creek, whatever. Maybe down the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, it seems like an odd restriction, the whole, carve out for Hilton Head. Just, to me,
Yeah.
I feel like we can't be the only people that, are looking at this.
We've always heard that the real estate lobby would be on fire about it. They're a powerful group, and that we would meet a lot of resistance with it. But yeah, I mean, strength in numbers would certainly help.
What's their big problem? They just increase the price of the property?
I think they feel like it would stifle sales. If ultimately things become more expensive, it has the effect of stifling their industry.
Just like it does in Hilton Head and Wild Dunes. That's right.
Exactly like that. The next two, the notes got actually disjointed. No, sorry, Josh, that same slide, one up. Pursue changes to the ATAX laws, that note is not relevant. That's to the one below it. Obviously, all these require a South Carolina change in code. This has been talked about in terms of 30% when that legislation got enacted that requires that we give away 30%. It was 30% of a much smaller number. Either flexibility in how that 30% gets distributed or lowering the amount from 30% to something less than that would be a great change from our perspective. But we also know there'd be a significant amount of resistance to this change.
This is two pieces on ATAX, the ability to add another percent, like Hilton had, or have flexibility with the 30%
Yep,
marketing requirement. So it's kind of a two-pronged.
that's right. Next one is one specifically that came.
Excuse me, Douglas,
Go ahead.
the next time we publish this, or we go through this, can we put those numbers up there? Because if we had the 1% and we did the promotional, we're looking at $3 million a year. On all, yeah, it would be helpful to even just quantify what the impact is. $3 million a year, that's probably one of the biggest buckets of opportunity that we have. And if it's not for this council, it might
1%
be
on
some
the
future.
ATAX. That one-
1%'s 1.8 million, 1.9, and then the promotional, we're at 1.1, 1.2. Just, we get paid, and then we have to write the checks to send right back out the door.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
that one we
that's a
could
lot of money.
certainly estimate. The last one we could estimate, the two and the first and the third would be tough. But yeah, that one, those two of those, we could guess. Municipal Improvement District Act, this is one that the Beach Ad Hoc Committee zeroed in on. There is an existing, and they call it the MID Act, that allows cities to charge certain properties a fee. We could do that, in theory, we could do this for an infrastructure project, a road project, any number of projects, but we cannot do this for a beach project. So without a change to that law, we're left with the option of charging everybody a uniform user fee. If there was a modification in this law, it would give us the ability to charge people who are closer to the beach a different rate than those that are farther back from the beach, or those properties that are highly erosional, a different rate from those that are accretional. So it would give the municipality flexibility in how to apply those user fees, but that's not built into the law at this time because beach renourishment is not listed as one of the applicable improvements that you can create one of these districts for. And that's another one, we've asked our lobbyists for help in changing that. Pursue changes to municipal sales tax, adding a percent of sales tax. Counties are currently allowed to do this, municipalities cannot do this currently. This is one that if we could add a percent of sales tax, could generate revenue. Next slide is city-controlled cost reduction options. So these are things that we have been looking at that could potentially save the city in the future. First one, we're calling those sand retention methods. We commonly call them groins. That's underway. That study is being done. We currently have included $4 million. I think it's still at $4
As debt?
as debt. Yeah, that we would borrow $4 million to construct those groins or whatever they may be.
Debt no millage, or with millage?
That one is with millage.
And you put the 800,000 savings in there as well?
We did not. We have not, correct, Deborah?
haven't.
Yeah, that is,
What-
How would it
but what's-
manifest itself in a longer period for the nourishment?
yes. So
So-
if the same sand got us 10 years that we're currently getting 8 years out of, we think that nets out to about a $800,000 a year benefit.
So if we got the cost in, we should put the savings in, shouldn't we? I mean, maybe you
I will
go
tell you
very
that. the 8 to-
conservative on the savings, or,
Yeah.
but you
8
put
to
some-
10 is completely, out of the blue,
Yeah.
but we could put in, maybe we
put
take
9.
half that. Yeah,
But, I mean,
yeah, maybe we put, if you all are agreeable, we'll put,
I mean, that's the premise of the
investment.
you wouldn't do
growing.
one
Yeah,
without the
yeah,
benefit. So Deborah, maybe 400,000 annual savings, which would be one more year.
Maybe the easiest way to do that, I don't know when we're going to be putting it in, but maybe you just take it out of the placeholder when we get the next renourishment and just knock it down 800. I don't know, just plug it somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something we're gonna have to look at. I mean, obviously, we need more information, but I mean, that's obviously going to come into the analysis when we decide.
That's
whether or not
correct.
We wanna do this. So
Yep. We,
At some point, it would be very helpful to see, like, oh, well, whatever the experts say, obviously, but this is gonna save us X amount.
yeah, we should have pretty decent numbers, better opinions than mine in terms of how much benefit we'd get out of those. So when we get those, we can certainly plug them in going forward, but I think it'd be prudent
Maybe
to plug in
an
some savings, because we
asterisk
wouldn't, we
says-
wouldn't do it without the savings.
This also assumes that we will continue to have 2 hot spots of erosion going forward, rather
Yes.
than the
Well,
historic one.
yes, I think that's safe to say. I mean, we have budgeted 4 groins. That has generally come from the theory that 3 could deal with Wild Dunes and 1 could deal with the south end. But where, that's, again, a little bit of a guess as to how that
Right.
would actually play out. Next one, supporting Army Corps beach and shoal projects. This is the, Army Corps has somewhat pledged to us that they would put the intracoastal, they've identified the intercoastal shoaling as one of the worst. They have indicated a willingness to placing the sand from that shoal onto our beaches. At the same time, they do the shipping, the Charleston Harbor shipping channel. It's roughly every 18 to 24 months that they're doing that. They think they will get 150,000 cubic yards each time they do that, so we've kind of annualized that amount to 75,000 cubic yards a year. That's subject to change, obviously, and but we do think that would be prudent for the city to work closely with the Army Corps to hopefully get that annual savings that it could bring. And just for the benefit of the public that may be watching and the council, this would be the Cottrell project that has just happened. They've had 2 projects going on. One was by, I think, almost every account, a mess. The Otna project, which was depleting the Spoils Islands, went on forever, did include less than desirable material, has been not great. But the Cottrell project happened very quickly. The sand was of high quality, good quality. So I think from a outsider's perspective, that would be a good effort to continue to support.
And Douglas, this is shoal, not in Wild Dune shoal, but just the
That's
Army Corps
correct.
piece.
Yeah, this is literally the sandbar that forms in the intercoastal waterway right at the intersection of Breach Inlet, which they've told us is the worst shoaling part of the intercoastal, at least in the state, if not in the southeast.
So this isn't in there either,
That is not in
the
there.
savings.
That is not in there. And I might say this one is less, obviously, the groins we don't do if they're not a benefit. This one, I think we have much less control over, so I don't know that we can count on it. from my perspective.
What do we need to do to make it happen? Like, where are we in the decision-making process?
On the groin or the?
No, this.
No, on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Show.
I think they have generally indicated that they're willing to do it. I don't know that there's anything, I mean, they do clearly kind of operate independently of the city. I do think if the city told them, we are a hard no, we don't want it, I think it's possible that they would not do it. But I think that, you know, we could look back in a year from now, 2 years from now, it's different people. I think it would be useful to kind of keep it in the back of everybody's mind that being supportive of those efforts has a long-term gain for the city. But there's
Who
not
do they
anything
contract
officially.
with?
Sorry?
Who do they contract with?
They go out to bid each project.
Yeah, so and the permits are with the state.
That's
They have a
correct.
state permit
That's
to put
correct.
that sand of certain quality on the beach. We found that out.
Yep,
So they get a permit from the state and then contract and do it without.
That's correct.
Any kind of, really, we can't approve or disapprove of it, you're saying?
I mean, we definitely could disapprove, we could fight their permit requests, we could object. I think if we wanted to not allow it, I think there would be an avenue to not allow it. I think if we are supportive of it, there's not much that we do. We don't execute agreements with them, we don't manage them. There's really not much that we do with them other than allow them kind of without objection.
Okay, I was just wanting to understand the
Yeah.
relationship. I'm not saying before it gets, I wanted to understand, because I thought we voted to do it last time. That's why I assumed it was our authority to do it, but that's good information.
And Douglas, I think to Katie's point, you know, this depends on congressional funding. I mean, to your
Yes.
point, counting on it's not solid ground by any stretch. And there's not really a city initiative or a federal lobbyist initiative to do on this one.
Right. Next one we touched on briefly, the idea of delaying the drainage project, Palm and 38th to 41st. That is a one-time, it's obviously not a recurring savings that we could get. And I think it would just be a delay. We could delay it until grants become available. Certainly be a path. But that is certainly a thing that is in our budget that we could remove.
Douglas, what's the difference between the 3.9 and the 5.5?
Which,
3.9 on the high-level expense assumptions for the
Oh.
drainage project, and then this is the 5.5 delay.
I think the 3.9 is all drainage for this year, for 2027.
Yeah, I think it's split across.
It's includes waterway and
Palm.
38th and
Yeah.
and Palm.
I think we also have that project in our budget now as phased across 2 years.
Right. This
So-
one, this 5 million one is phased.
It's phased on 2 years, so the 3.9 is the first half of that, first phase of that project, plus some other drainage projects.
Yeah.
But then there would be a 28 budget
fiscal, yeah.
as well.
Yeah, because originally that project was to have
It's in
been
this
done
year.
this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
at a much lower cost.
So that's a multi-year number, is what you're saying?
Correct. The 5.5 is across 2 years. Other cost-saving option, freeze on adding positions. As we've mentioned, there are currently 3 new positions in the budget. Could freeze those.
Douglas, real quick, one revenue item we have touched on at Beach Ad Hoc and for years, but is not on the list, is the franchise fee for any beach controlled activities.
Yes, that is one the Beach Ad Hoc Committee talked about, the things like umbrellas on the beach,
And I know, I think we had
classes on the beach.
a guess of a $50,000 number in there, but I
Yes.
think that one's got potential for significantly more than that.
Yep. That one, we could also be a option. So if there are any questions on that, we'd go into the department and fund review with Deborah?
Okay. So this budget, we'll look at page number, I think it's 14 in your packet. This current FY '27 budget that includes everything that Douglas just addressed has the city with a ending fund balance of $40 million. And of course, that includes everything that he just discussed, the large items as well as the biggest one, which is the beach renourishment project.
Deborah, this is actually page 2 of our budget, right?
Oh, it's page 2 of your budget?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Have page 4, okay. Page 3 of the budget shows personnel costs, and,
Deborah, I'm sorry, can we go back to that page for just a second?
yeah.
So all the assumptions we just talked about, not the ones that take future world action. So, yeah, so this one, again, just a ground, so for fiscal '26 and fiscal '27, this has us paying cash for the beach,
Cash for the beach.
debt for the fire truck, and then
As a
all the
lease
other
purchase,
projects.
yes.
Yeah, all the other projects we've talked about. So, and this shows, what, $1 million-ish roughly of surplus at the end of the year. It's still about $40 million in a fund balance at the end of the year. Just checking my math. Right? $40.4 million in a fund balance.
Yes.
And that's paying cash for
Right.
beach.
Right, but the change in the fund balance would be a $13 million
No, I'm just,
deficit, yes.
I'm just grounding there, making sure I'm right and
Mm-hmm.
we're drawing the right conclusion. I'm drawing the right conclusion.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So,
All the assumptions on revenue, all the assumptions on expenses. Douglas, you mentioned the handful of things that you'll need guidance on, but, okay, sorry, Deborah. Just wanted to make sure I was.
this is fine. This is fine. I guess I need to know, like, how much detail do you guys want to cover or dive into? Because, this budget, as Mayor Pounds pointed out on page 2, we can see how everything that we've discussed already will affect the fund balance. But how granular do you want to see this information? Because whatever you decide on, of course, will change these numbers. And there are some big, decisions that need to be made from a revenue perspective as well as a cost perspective on where the city or how the city wants to see the funds grow or decrease over the next 10 years. Because I think the end game is we can see how the fund balances are affected today for this upcoming project. But I think the larger concern is how it will look in 8 years. And I think that's always been a concern, that we want to be able to put things into place that will allow the fund balances to grow over the next 10 years to be able to sustain a healthy beach. If that's the end game, if that's not the end story, then we need direction from council on what the plan is.
Now?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, I think this page gives enough detail, and we need to hit these big ticket items.
Yeah, I think that, I think we have to look down the road. That's why we do 5-10-year projection, or looks at where things are. And there's no way we're going to sit here and know exactly where 5 years or 10 years is going to look. There's going to a lot of things are going to happen in there. But I think we can directionally tell if there's problems and how big those problems are. And I personally see a lot of problems with the budget. And so I think we need to get granular, and I think we need to look at some of these things pretty hard. But when I look at general fund revenue, if I went back to actually to 22, and our revenue since 22 to this budget, revenue has been up 15%, expenses up 55%. If you look at since 24, revenues are up 7.4%, expenses are up 27%. If you look at going forward from 27 to 2032, which is only 5 years, revenue up 5.8%, expenses up almost 18%. So that's telling us that our, more than 2 to 1, our revenues are growing faster, our expenses are growing faster than our revenue. That is not a sustainable picture for me. I can't sign off on that, going forward. And, I understand there's 40 million, but when you look out, we don't know what's going to happen. Many of our funds go, way down. And there's currently out there even a negative balance in there showing out, because we got a negative fund balance going out there on the beach fund out in 235. I mean, the city essentially goes broke in 2035 right now. If you take out the negative and fill it with other funds, we have zero funds balance. So I think there's some glaring, really big problems with this budget that we're going to have to address, is my opinion going forward. I know we've always said in the past, hey, we budget conservative, we always pull it out at the end, but this is, that's not a very promising strategy for me. I think, we're going to have to make some really tough decisions to correct this, and we have to look down the road, and we have to look at a pretty granular level to be able to determine what we need to do and what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah, maybe we can spend some time on the next page.
On payroll?
No, though, just the whole, yeah, I think what you've got a picture here, just for starters. I'm just trying to think of the logic of even putting kind of this together in, because what this presents is, payroll is our biggest expense, but it goes from 66% of the general fund in 2025 to 108% of the general fund by the end of this term. So we literally, our personnel expenses alone will not only eat the entire general fund, but it's 10% higher. And, one of the things I'd like to see added to this sheet, and we had a format last year that I think was very helpful, and that is, I think we should show the, the expenses as a percent of the revenues. We seem to like to put the expenses as a percent of expenses, but if our expenses are blowing through the roof, it's not really indicating how much revenue we have to cover them. So, if our payroll costs going from 66% to 108%, and just let that sit for a minute, of our general fund. I'd like to see a model that says, I think if we benchmark against what are good best practices across municipalities, with a, public safety-centric municipality, the personnel expenses should probably be in the 70% of general fund range, which is where they've been. They've been trending 66%. They were 55% a few years ago. But we're going, this year, we're not even showing it here, but we're going to be at almost 80%, 79 or 80% of general fund. And the trend just continues to go. And that's just one thing. I think that we've got we definitely have expense challenges, but we've got revenue challenges as well. And I think we're going to have to really get into that. But our expenses are, they're growing at 2.5 times our revenues. You can't run a household that way. So, I guess I would challenge the Douglas, yourself, and the teams to see if you can, right the ship for us going forward. That's just the operating expenses. And if we're going to be taking out debt to cover operating expenses, I think that's, I'm never for that. I'm never going to be for that.
Okay,
And
so.
let me just finish that. And then I think we should get into the beach a little bit. And if you look at the bottom, we're going from 141 to 217,000 per head. Can you also check the head count? Because last year we were showing 103, so those numbers may be off again. I don't know where we're at 92.5. on that. Why don't you go ahead and then we can come back to the beach, because I think they're two separate things. The beach is a big ticket item that's going to come once every, 8 to 10 years, but I think just our expenses, and that's, I'm just saying even beyond the personnel expenses, we've got to either get some more revenue or we got to figure out a way to manage the
Okay.
expenses.
So this budget is based on what we currently have. Of course, we don't have revenue to sustain increases in personnel, increases in large CapEx projects, increases in a beach renourishment every 8 years. So we're working with what we have. If council directs staff on where these additional revenues are coming from, then of course we will build them into the budget. But if we don't have additional revenues to report or even estimate, we can increase our percentages, but that's only going to get us but so much money. That's only going to get us but so far. The city has always been very conservative in budgeting revenues, sometimes not even budgeting a percentage over, sometimes going under. And with that, we have increased, this budget shows that we are increasing. We're still being conservative, but we are increasing. No one has the answers of where the city will land or how we will even get to where we need to be. We can only project based on history, which we feel like we're trying to do a pretty adequate job in determining that the percentages will increase. But expenses are rising, and yes, as you both have pointed out, they are increasing way above what our revenue, what we're currently taking in revenue. So we need to make some decisions. I mean, we can go through this line by line and see what the city can cut, see what the city can add, or see what you think is the best approach, but we have to start somewhere.
So if I understood you correctly, a minute ago, you said that you're looking to the administration, to the city administration and the finance department to right the ship?
No, what I'm asking for is to give us a model that shows us that we're not going empty on our fund balances, Jimmy.
Well, this has to come from us.
It does come from us.
So what exactly are you asking for?
Well, I would like to see a model that shows that if we've got a $6 million deficit in our general fund in a few years, what are our options and quantifiably to right that ship in the model? We seem to be putting all the expenses in the budget, but we don't show what are the contingent revenues. And I guess I'd ask Philip, what are your thoughts on this?
One quick thing. I think that's our job to tell them where the revenue's coming from, not them to tell us.
We need to,
Okay, then I would say, here's the newbie. And we had the Ways and Means before, I believe, was it the mayor that was the chair of the Ways and Means?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, so I don't know, I guess I would look to, your leadership, Mayor, and say, what are your thoughts on this?
So if I was king for a day,
Yeah, well,
so
Yeah.
at our last coffee, I asked that question of 20, 25 people in the room, if you were king or queen for a day, what would you do? Knowing we got the beach coming up, we got salary adjustments coming up that we need to take care of. If I was king for a day, I would do a millage increase to cover whatever we're going to do on the Evergreen study in our general fund and our operating costs. So that's probably, pick a number, 3 or 4 mil that we're probably going to wind up, depending on which option we pick and what we wind up doing. But that's, some number that we're going to pick from an operating millage standpoint. So I would take care of that through an operating millage
so
adjustment.
you're in favor of increasing taxes to cover operating
That's
expenses?
correct. And it's specific to salaries for our employees, salaries and fringes for our employees. Yeah. I'm going on record saying that right now.
See, right there, that's what
So,
we should be telling.
so I think that,
You vote.
that's an option. And you put it on the list as a millage increase.
Do we want to go to page 9 of the packet that has the options for revenue that
Oh,
We're
previous.
wanting, I guess, direction from you all, if you'd just tell us what it is you all would support in terms
Yeah,
of.
and I think, Bev, to your, and Scott, to both your questions, I mean, fiscal '27, look like kind of a normal-ish year for the city. We'll net $1 million-ish based on all the assumptions that we have sitting there. A lot of variables to, state law changes and requests that we have in, to John's point, who knows where that's going to come. It's really hard to budget in my brain for 2035 right now, to be quite honest with you. I get that we need to look at trend, and I get that we need to look at where we're going, and I think you guys have put some options on the table for us to make a decision on, and I don't think there's any way around a millage increase or other fee increases. Well, there's no way around it, and we need state help, and we need federal help on various things. I mean, all that needs to come together for us to take care of our future. And, not sure the right way to say it, but like I say, 2027 looks normalish to me. You go out past that, I have no idea how we're covering 2035 beach renourishment cost, if that's when we have to do the next one. No idea. Put a groin in, great, maybe that saves us some sand. Hopefully, the state's going to come through. Hopefully, Fed's going to come through. We might become an Army Corps, managed beach, which really changes the structure of life. But I'm rambling a little bit, Bev, to your question, but I don't think there's any way around increasing our revenue in some form or fashion. And again, some of that can come from state, some of that can come from Fed, some of that can come from millage increases or other things that are on the table here.
Well, and I guess I look at it that, we have to tighten expenses too. And somehow we have to look at, the delays, but I think that taking on debt for operating expense is a slippery slope for a
I'm
municipality.
not suggesting that at all.
Yeah.
I don't know where that's coming from.
Well, if you're taxing for operating expenses, I think it's a slippery slope and incurring a millage rate.
But how else
So-
is the city going to take care of its increased cost?
Tighten belt.
I mean, that's a
And
path.
I don't know if we're doing that. And that's,
Can someone else get a word in, please?
I'm sorry?
Thanks. I mean, I don't see any problem with having city administration department heads go through and look at their different departments and this as a whole and see where there might be pennies saved. I think that's a good exercise to do every year during the budget cycle. We always did it in the private sector. Why not do it in the municipal sector as well? But I think that's small dollars. I mean, I think what you're looking at there it's going to have very little impact on our total budget. I do think myself, along with what the mayor said and maybe some others have expressed, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. And I think it probably is going to come down to a millage or tax increase, quite honestly, because a lot of what we talk about for revenue is being hopeful that the state comes through, being hopeful that the federal government comes through, being hopeful that Santa Claus drops a sack of cash. I don't know. But I mean, we have to go and we have to make decisions as leaders on what we can do right now, going forward, to generate the revenue, and there's really just very few things that we have our control over. And, I know that's a tough conversation we got to have, but I think that's the way we've got to approach this. This is going to be one of those things we look at with the beach renourishment project, with wages, compensation. Those are the two big key items this year and going forward, I think.
And can I just make a point that when you look at the budget, your largest expenses are CapEx, capital expenditures and payroll. And when we went through the budgeting process, we tasked all of our departments to cut where they can. And if you open up the Excel spreadsheet that you were sent, you will see that most of those expenses either stayed flat are increased by 1%, if you actually open up the spreadsheet and saw that information. So I think that we are doing what you're asking us to do. But there are very large expenses in this budget that strictly comes from the capital expenditure pages and the payroll pages. The other stuff is just regular operating expenses.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, we already said that 80% of our cost is people costs, right? And so most of our costs lie in that area. And I do think there's a risk even in what we're doing with the people side of things. I mean, if you look at it, since 2022, every year we've increased our compensation by over 10%, in the 12% range. And what we have budgeted going out for all these periods, 5%. So, even though the last 5 years we've been at 10+% a year, we're budgeting 5%. So, there's risk on the expense side too, as well as on the revenue side. So, I support, we have to make tough decisions. We're gonna have to figure out how to balance this thing out, at least for me to approve it.
Yeah, and if we do Philip, if we do a 3 millage increase to cover this current one, in 2 years, we're doing another 3 mil increase? I guess the expense trend, I don't know how we write this boat where the revenues, and, I'd like to get to a sustainable model where our revenues and our expenses are tracking. If our expenses are now growing at 2.5 times the revenue streams, we've got to raise a lot of revenue. And if we do a millage increase, that's the answer, but it's going to be a Band-Aid for 2 years. So I think we've got to look at beyond. I would like to see us go through this budget cycle with sustainable revenue streams that are going to be growing and that we can, when I say right the ship, get our expense trend line associated with our revenue growth line so that we don't have to keep doing this every 2 years. And on the beach is it's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, so I think everybody's saying the same thing. We just need direction on what you want us to put in the budget to show revenue growing and expenses being reduced.
Joshua, could you put page 11? So I think two down. And I think, so on this page, I guess I don't think there's any question that we're down a path with growings potentially. There's no cost to the Army Corps being supportive of their efforts. Drainage project delay. Is there consensus that we pull that expense out for the next 2 years? Wait on grants?
Or phase it.
Well, so it's
You
in
gotta
there,
do a phase.
it's in there,
It's in now, right?
yeah, as two phases.
But a heavy phase and a light phase is what it is.
I think it's like 3.5 and,
It's like
Or
1.8 and then 3 million.
oh, okay. So,
Other
yeah.
way around.
Other way, all right.
I'm sorry, can you explain those two phases, the 1 point, so what did it?
And
what
I
is
don't
it?
know exactly
Okay.
where but this is in kind of the simplest form. This is a pipe that extends from 41st and Palm Boulevard down to 38th Avenue. The first phase that we've budgeted for is we basically took the money that we already have budgeted plus the NPDES money and took that amount and said, okay, that's going to be phase one, however far it gets us,
Okay.
which we think would be maybe to 39th. We would then do the remaining of that project to
41st.
go down to 38th. So we'd start at 41st.
Oh,
and
you
go-
start at 41st,
yeah,
okay.
Go towards so it is 2 phases. There's no magic in the phases other than the first phase would be the amount we already have allocated to the project.
Okay.
Is this the one that went from 2 to 5?
Yes.
Yes.
But they have said that this is a project that can be broken up
Phase,
into
yeah.
basically however long we want. It
That's what I was
really
asking,
comes
what
down
the-
to how long we want the pipe. And so we can kind of make it as long as we can pay for. If we put a number on it, and that's how they'll basically go until they run out, right? I mean, that's.
Right.
And up until recently, we've carried it as a capital project with a projected cost of, what, $1.5 million or so? $1.5
About
to 2.
two.
Yeah.
About 2 million.
And then we found out that was a bad number.
Correct. And I think we shifted, I do think we shifted that money to cover the additional expense at
Waterway.
Waterway, because we had an overage there too. So we've,
Should we attach a portion of this to a grant? So that,
yeah, so that would be a path. We say we're going to pause until we actually are awarded a grant. Once we start, and we've had, in recent years, we've had decent luck getting kind of $1 million grant. And we could just continue with this project as grant funding gets awarded. In the old days, we did a small project every 6 years. Here recently, we've tried to do 1 or 2 very large projects every year. So we'd be going back to the kind of old cadence of let's save money, get grants, and kind of go slowly at the drainage infrastructure. So it would be a little bit of a new direction, but it would be very much the way it was just 10 years ago.
But we're also at a pretty good point, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, because of everything that we've done,
That's
the
correct.
major improvements that we've done a lot of the big stuff, and now we might be at a point where we can
I think that's,
step back a little bit and not say that we're not gonna do anything, but we're gonna maintain and chip away at the smaller things.
you're exactly correct.
And also see how much benefit we're getting from these really big projects, because, knock on wood, we haven't tested, 41st just got done, it hasn't really been tested, and,
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound like we're going back. We're not going back to where we were 10 years ago, because we have we have paid for the infrastructure that is hopefully putting us in a much better place than we were 10 years ago.
You're exactly correct. And
Yeah.
we see that with every storm. I mean, we literally used to be in hip-high waders in 43rd Avenue trying to rescue pumps. Those days are just done. I mean, we've done so much work over the course of the last 10 years that it's just it's a different environment. Tens of millions of dollars of infrastructure in place, doing their job. Our problem areas are nothing like what they were 10 years ago. So I think there's logic, and we've kind of had foot full on the accelerator for a long time, and I think it wouldn't be detrimental to start going at a slower rate on those projects.
Does that also put us at a potential for the cost of the project to increase?
I think it does.
will.
Yep,
So we'll kind of consider that.
yep. I
Also,
think you're right.
What kind of savings we got?
Douglas, I also remember that we would save money
That's correct.
in advance for fire trucks and equipment needs that we needed. And so we would save the money, so when it came time to replace something, we had to pay cash.
And drainage projects. We would do a few $100,000 a year to build up to a project, and
Right. We can get back there.
Douglas, do the grant dependency for like drainage projects, would that be the same source where we are very successful in getting grants for walkovers? Or is it a different department, a different agency?
So we have been given grants from the state. The last one was from the Office of Resilience. We've gotten them from FEMA. Waterway is FEMA. We've gotten budget allocations from the state budget. So it's been a wide, we got a hazard mitigation grant for Forest Trail area. So there are a lot of drainage grants out there. We have spread a wide net, and different buckets of money get filled at different times, and we just go for them as they become available. Not any one particular source that we've
Okay.
really relied on for those.
But the last 5 years have been state budget allocations for the most part.
Yeah, well, FEMA, SCORE, I mean, there's been a mix. So everybody agreeable, we'll pull that 5.5 million out. We'll delay. I think Mayor's cringing a little bit.
I mean, that's just, it is not a hip wader area, but it is a problem area that wipes out parking for 3 blocks when we have big storms.
Well, SCDOT should be concerned about that, and maybe we
Disagree.
should have gone to TST for, put that on the
That would be
transportation
another-
tax?
That would be another bucket to request from in the future. We haven't been putting it on our list, but we could.
One thing you could do is just put it into the budget in years at a cadence that you think you can get grant funding so that it stays in. So you put the grant money in and you put the part of the project and spread it out over whatever period of time you feel like you are,
Yep.
you can get the grant funding. So it's still in the budget, but at a slower pace based on whatever you feel you can get funding for.
And does it zero out because you've got the grant income coming in?
Yeah, it zeroes out. You're putting the revenue in as a grant, you're putting the expense in as your
So
capital.
it's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Is that a path for everybody? Put,
I mean, it's a path. I mean, everything on this page is a placeholder. So if you're going to put in grants, I mean, it gives you a better picture, for sure, of what your net expenses are going to be. But when we get to that budgeting year,
Is it realistic?
you may wipe it out.
Right.
Both sides of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just,
But if we're saying we're going to do it, we want to do it, but we want to do it contingent upon getting a grant,
Yep.
then you put it in at a cadence you think you can,
Yep.
realizing that if the grant doesn't come through, the project doesn't come through, but it's not a budget impact, essentially.
And it tells a story and we
Yeah.
can track it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, Deborah's created this budget kind of worst-case scenario, right? Without grants, without any state budget money or anything. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to change your picture
Yeah.
quite a bit.
so just so we're basically making a decision that we're not going to go forward. We're matching a grant income with the project. So if it doesn't, the grant money doesn't come in, we're pushing the project out. That will
Right.
That'll
Yes.
improve our
That's my
position.
recommendation.
On this Palm and 38.
Yes.
On that one.
That would remove $5 million from the budget.
Happens to be 3 blocks. We happen to get $2 million grants. I mean, it kind of works tightly of 3 $2 million projects, one each year. So
Yeah, Deborah, it
We do
doesn't,
have some money, though, that's.
we do
We're using
have,
all-
And
We're
that-
using
Oh, no.
all of it.
we use it for waterway. We have money in this, we have money budgeted for this project in this year,
Nothing
but we
that we
used
have.
it
We
on
don't
waterway.
risk losing any, because that's another little wrinkle there is if we, if we get $500,000 in grant money and the project is $1 million, then what do we do? We just,
you're not doing it, according to him.
then you have to, do you lose the grant or do you figure
Yeah.
out another place for it?
Or we use
Or
the
do
fund
the
balance.
engineering on it or some amount, that, I don't know,
Yeah.
you have to figure that out at the time.
Yep.
But Deborah, you're not wiping out $5.5 million. You're essentially putting in
I'm
$5.5
adding
million in
income,
grant
right, to
income.
net it
Yeah.
down
And spreading.
and spreading.
Yeah.
How about next item? We have 3 positions, 2 officers, 2 police officers, 1 beach resilience officer. I think they're generally kind of plugged in at about $1 million per position. Exclu-
100,000.
100,000. Wow. I'll apply.
Put that down. A 0 or 2 here.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
100,000.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing from Chief on the 2 police positions. I know Public Safety may have already heard from them, but, and Chief, while you're walking up, I mean, I think about it in a way, we've pulled off parking enforcement, we've pulled off beach enforcement, so just from that standpoint, the two ads, just talk through that if you don't mind.
Certainly. First thing, we are tasked with supporting and ensuring safety for not only our residents, but the thousands of people that come across every day across the Isle of Palms Connector, across the Hunley Bridge, through Sullivan's Island. We have seen that the population in the Charleston area significantly increase just in the 7 years that I've been here. And we have not added a law enforcement officer position since 20 years. Is the last time we added a police officer. As a matter of fact, we have to budget to hire an off-duty deputy. And that in itself says that we don't have enough people if we have to budget to add somebody for that. The other part of this is we want the highly trained officers that we have. To do that, they have to go to training. And because we have so many people that come to the island and so many events that take place on the island, we have to tax them by working those different those different duties and those different days. And what happens is they wind up working so much, they're not getting to enjoy their time off. Oftentimes, when they're off, they're being called back in. And so we're overworking our employees and not giving them the ability to be able to go seek that advanced training that we need them to have so that we have the best. That helps with retention too. By adding these two, we give the ability for them to take their time off, to enjoy their time off that is needed, because I need them, because we have to be able to make a decision in a split second that takes away somebody's rights, their life. And if we're not rested and we're not prepared to do that mentally because we've worked too much, then we put ourselves in a risky situation. So this helps us to mitigate some of that risk by ensuring they have downtime, ensuring they're getting that advanced training, and that in itself will help with retention and keeping the officers longer. Right now, we lose some because they work quite frequently. And during the summer, our guys work pretty much every weekend. They work, you guys seen it on 4th of July. I come in at 7 in the morning, I don't go home until 1 o'clock in the morning. And that's, I'm not the only one. There are several of us that are coming in and working all day long to make those things happen. And that's just one day out of a long weekend. And that's something we do every weekend during the summer. So we're really working our folks really hard. This will give us a chance to give them that rest and give them that time to train.
And Chief, what do we, I know we do have used off-duty police for like traffic control and such. I mean, is there any lien on the county that we haven't pressed on? I mean, I think we as a city haven't pressed hard enough on the county on some other items, but I'm wondering from your view.
So we can call them and we ask for people,
Yeah.
and they'll send us people. I have no control over what they're going to do, how productive they're going to be. We have some that we have paid that come out here because we're hiring them, and they might be productive. We have others that sit in their car with their blue lights on, and that's what we get out of them. They just sit parked. And sometimes we can't even fill those spots. Quite frequently over the last couple of years, we have been unable to fill majority of those positions when we've tried to hire an off-duty deputy. And you have to understand.
Because of their staffing issues.
Correct. They're in a staffing situation too, and they too have just sought pay increases over the last couple of years to try to get deputies out here. And even when we call them and they ask, they do. I want to say, when I say, hey, I need somebody like now, the sheriff sends me people. Again, how long I'm going to have them is the question. Because what happens is we've only got so many deputies that can work this side of the river. And they're covering all the way down to Awendaw and all this area to the river. And it's very few deputies at one time that are doing that. So when they're here, that's other areas that are unincorporated that are not getting coverage. So they can't dedicate somebody to us like we need. Whereas having our own, we have that ability. They're dedicated right here to our island.
And I guess from a staffing standpoint, Chief, I mean, we're staffed to have 2 police officers and a sergeant on duty at any time. That's three officers, which is not enough during the prime of the season or during the majority of the months. And so you have to supplement anything with that with overtime, right?
Not necessarily.
Or
So
another.
we have 1 sergeant and 2 officers working, and then what we have is our K-9 and our traffic officer that cover a split shift. That really we use them to kind of bleed that busy time of the day. The downside is we're basing that busy time of the day on our calls. The unknown for us is the type of calls we get that may be after that busy time. For 1 DUI, we need 2 officers. For 1 domestic violence call, we need 2 officers. For 1 traffic stop, you really need 2 officers. Those 3 things are the most dangerous things for law enforcement. The only thing close to that we don't plan for are ambush assaults on law enforcement in our nation right now. So when you add even the sergeant and 2 officers and 1 on a split, we can go through those in 2 calls at one time. And there are times when they've had somebody pulled over and other calls come out and they have to go, hey, I have to go, which works when it's a speeding call. But it's a whole nother issue if they're out there with an impaired driver, because we can't just let them go. And so then we're having to borrow folks from Sullivan's Island who also finds themselves short-staffed, and they have often asked us to help back their officers up when they are short. They may only have 1 out there at night or during the day, and they rely on us to come and assist them during that. So if they've only got 1, we can't really rely on them too much. So it is what we would do with these 2 spots is we would add them to the same type of schedule that our K-9 and our traffic officer work, so that it gives us 4 split shift officers. giving us the ability on those busy weekends to reduce the amount of time we're working our people over by maximizing it with the extra split shifts that we have. It also, instead of having to pay somebody overtime to cover a 12-hour shift, 2 officers can split that time in half, cost us no overtime.
And when you have to transfer someone to Leeds Avenue or whatever, that, our officer has to do it, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So they're leaving the island to not only process the paperwork, but to deliver
That's right. Yes, sir. And then
person.
if they have to go to the hospital, if they've been involved in any collision, some DUIs, if we've had to use any amount of force, they wind up going to the hospital, which means we have to sit on them at the hospital and wait till the hospital releases them. And then when they release them, they then get to transport them to the jail, book them, and then come all the way back from Leeds Avenue. For taking somebody to the jail, we can lose somebody on the short end, an hour. But typically, what I see, especially at nighttime, it is much longer because we do run into these people who are impaired. And I can't tell you, we've had to call people in on overtime because somebody had to go sit at the hospital, and they're going to be there for a long period of time. And so we have to bring other people in from off-duty to help cover that so that we've got enough coverage on the island.
My thoughts would be that we leave these 2 positions in because it seems to me like you've made a good case for it being necessary. And the last thing that I would want to see as a citizen out here is a burned-out officer who can't make those split-second decisions when they need to because they basically are overworked.
And I appreciate, and I do want to say, we go out of our way to try to help where we can. I just had to turn down one of the meetings that the mayor proposed because I'm covering a night shift so that one of our sergeants could be off. And we just needed that coverage. And that doesn't cost us any overtime. What that does is take me away from my ability to do things during the day. But I like playing police sometimes too, so I'm okay going out and doing cop work. But we do try. I say that to say, like Lieutenant Forsyth covered half of a shift last night. We do that to try to mitigate as much as we can, but there's still those administrative responsibilities we have to do. I just wanted to point out that we do try our best to cover these without making an impact on overtime and things like that when we can.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth with this because I supported it and I know how important cost are cuts, but I do support it. I did a drive around with you, Chief, and I was really shocked at how, and this wasn't in the busy time of year, but how short-staffed we were with only 2 officers and a sergeant on. And I do think that there's some overtime relief, obviously not enough to cover the cost of this, but I think we should build that into the budget, as we said, but I do support it. But Deborah, I think maybe this may, but I don't know that the head count, it shows 92 people.
Yeah, I'll
And
update
so we
that.
need to just update that, and I don't think that, and I think as a result of the head count maybe being wrong is the fully loaded FTE costs are
that'll go
wrong
down.
as well, so if we could get that just corrected, what the real head count is.
Will do.
I think you obviously made a very good case for 2 additional officers, and kind of to Philip's point, I've always thought of this as, and, sometimes people complain that Isle Palms has a pretty heavy police influence. There's a lot of officers around and people get stopped for speeding and whatnot, and I'm like, well, that's because it's the off-season and, come here on this day in the summer and they're slammed. We're not the only beach town. Are there any other, what do other beach towns do that deal with this huge influx? Because obviously we need more people in the middle of the summer. I don't like the idea of you guys all having to work, every weekend in the summer. I mean, that sounds terrible. I mean, we're talking about retention and, I don't know, I'm just wondering if there's any other.
It is a great question that we dove into looking at it. We even looked at a seasonal part-time police officer, and I called around to some agencies that have tried it, and the words I got was, "Are you crazy? Do you know what kind of person you're going to get for that?" So most of them would not even post it because they were concerned about the type of applicants you get for it. It's actually part of the reason we stopped. We had a reserve officer program when we got here. It was so costly to maintain it because of the training hours, and then making sure you get quality people for it was the hardest part. So we did look at that, looking at doing part-time. I talked with the academy. There were ways we could do it. The concern from everybody was what do you pay them to make that beneficial to them? And then would you target people who are retired, who can only work so many hours after retirement before they're paying into retirement and not getting anything back? So the state retirement plan has really tied our hands on getting a lot of these folks that retired to come back. It's a fight we have every year on Capitol Hill up there in Columbia. Retirement's our biggest issue we have because they can't return back. So we've looked at it, yes, and even looked around and explored some people that I knew were interested about coming to work for us before and said, hey, would you do part-time? And the answers we typically got was, well, not for part-time, no. Do I get insurance? Do I get any of these other things, which you would not get for part-time? And we did explore it. And Myrtle Beach, I think, tried it at one point, and they had some successful folks that kind of retired and returned, but it doesn't seem like it's been as successful recently.
Another one of
It
those,
would be nice.
another one of those things that we should be asking the state.
In other states, what they do is in other states, you can be a police officer in more than one jurisdiction. And so they're able to bring people in who might be in a place that's not as busy during the summer that then come in and do police work during the summer for them. South Carolina does not allow us to do that. That would be a violation of our Constitution.
Yeah, between that and how the state pension plan works, kind of literally handcuffed.
Yes, sir. Good play on words there.
Yeah.
And then Douglas, with the third position, I know it's labeled as a beach resilience. I know y'all have talked about broadening that. Just, you
Right.
want to speak to that? So we just talked about.
Yes,
the
so,
police,
so this is a position that was in, it really, I guess, started, I think, from the strategic plan of being a leader in environmental issues and resilience issues. That was reinforced with the community enrichment plan. It was a suggestion in there. It's actually in this current year's budget as an initiative that the city wanted to embrace. So it's kind of well underway. I think the admin committee felt like, and if I'm kind of speaking for them incorrectly, I'm sure they'll let me know, but I think they maybe categorized it as a nice to have, but not necessarily a need to have, like police officers. So knowing the challenges in the budget, I think it was their recommendation to pause on that one until some future time, to make space in the budget to add the 2 police officers. I think from the staff's perspective, here recently, there has just been a tremendous amount of work on the beach, groins. We've added EAC. We now have a permanent beach advisory group. There is certainly 40 hours of work per week for a position like this currently. I think we could see a place in the future where once the beach renourishment's done, things are in a better place, that they would be able to kind of get their head above water, hopefully see kind of longer range. So maybe the need to have them was really this year, and it's been missed. So I could see a strategy where it's paused, we put it on the back burner, adjust with the 2 officers, and just see how things proceed from here, put it in a future date.
Well, and not to put words in your mouth, but I think you said it would take like 4 months, 3-4 months to hire, and then another 7 or 8 to get them up to speed. And like you said, most of the major projects will be
Yeah.
hopefully be in the rearview mirror for right now.
I think I'm hearing consensus, put 2 officers in, pause on the resilience officer. Is that,
Yes.
That's where I am.
okay?
So Deborah, I know you've only got a handful of items to adjust so far. Douglas, what are your other items we need? You guys need
Can we talk
direction
about the
on?
fire truck for just a minute? What about adding, again, I'm looking long-term here, and the gap just widens as far as the revenue to expense. What about putting a mill on that, on the debt?
Fire truck.
Which is a fixed asset, not operating?
I've got some high hopes for grants at a federal and state level, but we could. do that.
I mean, if
and
we can
then
get the
shift
grant,
over.
or make it, well, I guess we can make it grant dependent. But if we don't get the grant, then
No,
maybe.
it's bought.
Yeah,
Then you could-
That's right.
Right.
Can I ask, what is the replacement policy on, or what is the replacement need, I guess, for fire trucks and, you know, the big ticket items? I don't know, Chief, if any,
Be on my chief.
22 years, I think, on this current one, right?
Yeah, this
what
one.
is the life of a fire truck?
Yeah, so we have, it's a great question. So we, for example, have extended out our mules, John Deere mules, like we thought it'd be a 2-year replacement. Now we're up to 4 years. We've looked at our fire apparatus, the big ticket items. How can we extend those? And those are typically between 10 and 12 years. This fire truck purchase, for example, when we purchase it, our ladder truck that we currently have is in decent enough shape where I think we're going to be able to potentially stretch our current replacement cycle. Our current replacement cycle is in the capital. It's noted in the capital plan. You'll see how it's marching out. So, you know, for the fire service, our equipment is very, very expensive. And we've looked all the way down to the mules to our most expensive big ticket item, which is our ladder truck. And so we're doing everything we can with our preventative maintenance to extend that out. But it's typically 12 years is where that would be. The challenge is it takes sometimes 24 to 36 months after you order the truck to receive it. So that's difficult. So even though you see it in the budget, it may not come to fruition, 3 years down the road once we say, hey, we're going to order this, we're going to sign the contract.
Chief, the truck that would be replaced, you've got one old truck that breaks down frequently, right? I mean, it's,
Yes.
or we're always having to rework it, trying to source parts that really aren't even that readily available anymore.
That's correct. The
Yeah.
2002 Tower truck, which is a ladder truck, it's replaced.
Yeah, okay. And you order in advance, like you said, 24 to 36 months lead time. Do we put down some sort of earnest money or deposit on that? I mean, when you order it, you're obligated at some point, right? I mean, you can't just walk away from it.
That's correct. Well, upon delivery, when we accept delivery, then that's when we affect.
Yeah, but I mean, if we call them today and say, we decided we don't want it, even though it's been ordered and in the process, what happens, if anything?
So to my knowledge, our contract, we would not, I'd have to go back and look at the contract details. But from my understanding, we would be able to sever that contract and not, and I have to look to confirm. But I don't believe that we would incur any financial loss with that, Deborah. Is that correct?
I have to look at the contract, I don't know.
Yeah.
We
'Cause
did
it was
not
just
put
a letter
we
of
did not put
intent.
a,
Yeah,
Right.
okay. Well, I'm not going down that road, don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here advocating for that.
Right.
Is this
I'm
the
in
one that is
favor of the
breaking
truck.
down? This is replacing the one that keeps breaking down?
A 2002, yes, ma'am. And so it's just, it's 24 years old and in our environment, it did go through a refurb a while back, but it's just.
I remember talking to Roger Eagle about it. I mean, and he had done a lot of sourcing of some of the materials and whatever, and he was talking about how difficult it was just to get the parts.
Correct. And there's such in demand, so even though the truck's 24 years old, and I've asked for a quote from Sutphin that's our manufacturer, to give us a quote on what it is because when we accept delivery of that new truck, we will sell a truck either on Gov Deals or directly to the vendor. And just in initial conversations 2 years ago, we were between $150 and I think it was $350,000, $400,000 that we would receive from the sale of that apparatus. And of course, those monies would go back to the general fund. Now, it's been a couple years since then, so things may have changed. I have reached out to get that number. And so I hope to have the number prior to this meeting, but we just have not heard. So there will be some general fund monies that we will recoup, but I just don't know what that'll be.
And what's our timing on the delivery of this one we've had ordered?
It's supposed to be October of this year.
However, Sutphen is going through, they've had some collective bargaining. They're based out of Ohio, so they've had some union issues, collective bargaining with their labor, and so everything has slowed down with their manufacturing process. So it potentially could be a little bit later.
Let me just ask Scott this real quick. So Scott, to your point, you know, about the millage on the fire truck and/or grant income, one or both, or I mean, what, because if this is coming within our fiscal year, most likely.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to get us into creating some revenues here that are going to help us in the out year and also alleviate the strain on our fund balances. What we're doing is we're creating more expense over a longer period of time. I'm open for options, but I
Yeah.
think we've got to do something to alleviate the expense that we keep adding here. And I hope we're going to talk about some out years here.
I know, but I'm just saying, if, I guess, is council comfortable slotting some
millage, yeah.
grant income? We've got 2 requests in on this particular fire truck in 2 different places. You know, is there comfort to put potential grant income to offset some of that expense?
What if we say, hope for the grant, and if we don't, we do the
I mean,
millage?
that's kind of where,
Is that kind of?
that's kind of where you were.
I'm good with that, yeah. I mean, that is, I think we've got to figure out a way to cover some of these
Yeah.
outflows.
Bev, sorry.
Yeah, my question comes more for planning ahead in future years. Has the city ever thought about a vehicle replacement fund? You know, because we have the police, and I'm talking about all of public safety, because you've got fire trucks are always big toys, big ticket items, and they come and they're sometimes a surprise, sometimes not. If your truck breaks down, you obviously need one. Police cars are a different story. They have a smaller useful life, harder on the vehicle. And every year, planning ahead, putting a little bit away in this fund so that these big ticket items aren't such a hit.
I think
Going
that's why
forward,
the
I don't know.
capital fund was created. The capital fund was created for that very same purpose, to be able, for the city to be able to pay for some of those expenses.
But in a capital fund, you have other needs that might replace that, where in a vehicle replacement fund, it is earmarked, if you will,
Yeah,
for that. I don't know, I'm just putting that out there.
We have done it
To think about it.
for very large ticket items
Okay.
like fire trucks. We also have tried to kind of spread out the replacement, tried to even out the burden of the replacement cost of the less expensive vehicles to
Right.
be somewhat flat instead of all of them being replaced at one time. We haven't done it for this one. We could go back to that program of kind of saving for the larger trucks.
So what is the ETA for the delivery?
Is that
It's
October?
October, but I believe it's going to be beyond that because of their labor challenges.
It's
that they-
probably this
that-
fiscal year, next
Yeah.
fiscal year.
Now, if
Yeah,
you,
It should be October to March, I would say.
Are they working now or currently stopped?
I believe they're stopped currently.
now, Mac had mentioned something, I guess, about the pricing. Is there,
No, we're locked in with the pricing.
but if we were to go out and bid that today, the same truck, would we end up in the same place?
No, sir.
Where would we end up?
Federal emissions standards changed, and that would make, it would,
Yeah,
it
up or
would.
down?
It would
It'd
up,
be up, okay.
yeah, significantly. I don't know what that number would be, but it's pretty significant.
Okay.
But correct me if I'm wrong, and I think this is related to what Scott was asking, I think, but the companies that build these things, they pretty much are all in lockstep too in the way they price these ladder trucks and other equipment, right?
That's correct.
There's not a lot of,
Yeah, there was some indication that there might be some
Yeah.
price coordination, and that if that were busted, that these prices would significantly
Exactly.
drop.
Correct.
And that we might have an option to wait until that happens, but it doesn't sound like that's feasible. That's not a feasible option for us, is what you're saying.
Correct, right now. Yes, our attorney mentioned some of that he's aware of, how that's in that space with potential accusations of price fixing and different things in that industry. I will say the $300,000 note on there for the fire rescue boat, and we went over this in admin committee, but we have this grant cycle currently, and then we'll have the next grant cycle But we're looking at that only, that purchase only if we get approved for the grant, and we can continue to extend that out, just like you mentioned for the drainage, that we could, for the stormwater, we could also continue to push that out, and only with purchase of that item if we have grant funds available.
So Deborah, how is that characterized now? Just a $300,000 expense?
Yes, sir, it's the $300,000
So we
expense.
need to put in a grant.
No, because
But-
It's a debt.
the cost of it, that'd be our portion.
That's our
of the
portion.
Yeah, just our
grant
portion.
administration. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But my understanding of that is if we don't get it this next grant cycle, the city would be in debt for the full cost of that,
1.3 million or something.
right? Is that my
At some
understanding?
point, we will have to decide that. However, if we're moving all these pieces around and being creative as possible, we could try for another grant cycle. So we have this grant cycle we have not heard back from. If it's a no, we will reapply again in 2026. Our thought is to hear back from that. If we don't get it, we reapply again in 2027. We may not hear till 2028. And so if it's a no in 2028, at that point, we would come to council and have a conversation. Hey, we feel comfortable, let's try another grant cycle, or we recommend an outright purchase. But it's an item that we need, but it's an item that we can defer. There are assets locally that can handle that mission for us, and I feel confident with 2 or 3 more grant cycles, we would have success. So that's a conversation we could have, but that can be pushed. And I will say, we have 3 open positions in our fire department. We have not been able to fill those since last year. I don't remember exactly how many months, if it's 6 or 8 months, and those positions are unfilled now. So I'm not advocating freezing positions in the fire department, but with the retention and recruitment needs that we have, and Deborah, we went through our exercise of tightening the budget. I mean, we looked again at everything, like down to the mules that we have, the John Deere mules for the beach. I mean, we have left no stone unturned. So, everything's on the table for us, but I'm not advocating for that, but that's the only other big hitter item, budgetarily, and still that's only, it's $300,000, but it's, for us operationally, there's some challenges there over time. How does it really work out? We're working our people more than we should. Is it really worth it? But again, to offer any solutions so you can deliberate and decide those are the creative pieces that we have in our department.
I don't think that's where we want to
No, I
consider
think
it all,
we're
Chief,
talking-
but thanks for
Go
the
back to the fire
thought.
truck
Yeah,
again.
that's not something we'd want to put on the table.
Right.
So on the fire truck, the cost of it's $2.5 million. So, and that's what's in the budget right now is being financed. But what I heard the chief say is there's going to be a net amount in there too. We're going to sell the current fire truck.
And I'm waiting on that number. He hasn't
Yeah.
given me
So
that number yet.
if we
Yes.
offset that by, 300, the actual amount would be 2.2 million, and we're looking at grants to be able to cover that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna, I'm just trying to clarify how we're gonna put, because we also talked about mill increase to cover the debt. So do you put it in,
I can put the sale of the asset in the same year, which is 2027, that we plan on getting the truck,
all right?
which is 2027. Now, as far as the grant and the debt, I also had questions about that. So are we trying to do both, or are we going to do one or the other?
I would say you do one or the other. I would-
Well,
Okay.
how about, I think if I'm hearing this right, without any risk, we could take a 1-year, I guess, pause on this to go for the grant. Is that what I'm hearing? For the grant cycle?
Fire truck?
Yeah,
No,
or no?
Not on the fire truck. Yeah.
no, this is the,
Oh, the boat, yeah. But on the fire truck, are we going to hear about the grant, like,
Fiscal
soon?
27, I would
Okay.
guess.
yeah.
So if we don't
So-
get grant, we go debt? Is that something
Well,
that the council would
let me
be?
qualify that real quick, Scott. I think if it's state money that we get, we'll know that in just a matter of months before budget's got to be done, but we'd know it before the fiscal year starts. Doesn't help us our budget prep.
Yeah, so the assumption is if we can get the grant, great. If we can't, is the council willing to entertain
Yeah.
a millage increase?
Guess either way, you're gonna
Not
offset
slow
the
down the
expense.
the delivery. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could put it
Just
in
put
either
in-
way.
Which you put in,
So, put it in as-
suggestion, put it in as a grant right now, and it may turn into a millage increase. Scott?
Yeah, either way, it's not a, it
It's
won't be
not
a
a
net
net,
expense to the city.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Robert, I
If
feel
council's,
air.
if council's okay with that.
But what you were talking about with no risk, that was the vote. We can
Yeah.
That's the vote.
push
yeah.
that off.
Correct, yeah.
There's no risk for waiting a year.
All right.
So we want
Yeah.
to push the 300 out one more year, or leave it in
That's what I was hearing.
with hopes of getting a grant? I mean, what are we doing? Are we, the $300,000, are we leaving that in, or with hopes to get the grant, or push it out one more year?
Keep, I think he's keeping it going.
I mean, I say let's go for 3 grant cycles. We can push it out for one more year, and
Okay.
then if we don't get the grant within the 3 cycles, we'll come back to council and say, hey, we've gone through this 3 cycles.
Yeah.
What's your direction? What are your thoughts? I think we'll have more clarity at that point.
Okay. Douglas, what are our other big guidance numbers y'all need?
Yep, so, two at the top of the list are the wages and the incentives. And my understanding that the admin committee is going to work through both of those, make a recommendation back to council. Currently in the budget, we have what I'll call option A from Evergreen and no incentives. Do we just leave that until admin has had a chance to study it and give a recommendation to the full council? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Now.
Is timing gonna work?
We
Yeah.
don't know
Why don't we
if
look
we'll
at what Phillips 3 mil looks like on, if we're going to put the expense in, I'm just of the mindset that if we're going to put expense assumptions in, we might want to put revenue assumptions to cover them as well. That's kind of where I'm at.
So right now, that's the next one is millage. So right now, we have millage for fire truck. If we're not successful with the grant, do we want to also run that?
We're running the fire truck with a grant.
But if we don't get the grant, the expectation is we're paying for it with a millage increase, correct?
So I'm not.
Yeah, so again, net neutral to the.
Yeah, so no money out either way on the fire truck.
Yeah. Then wages.
Do we want to do the same with wages? We will.
Let's see what it looks
increase-
like. I think we need to see, and I'd like to go through these revenues and give the guidance then to say, how do we close the gap of the widening deficit of the, general fund revenues to the general fund expenses? Because if that deficit continues to grow, we're just going to have to rob more A-tax, which would then means we can't do our capital projects.
Right.
So
So
John,
just for clarity, so I'll know what to do. So right now, to slow the bleed, we are going to show the budget with an increase in operating millage for the recaptured amount, right? Which will equate to about $936,000. Is that what we're showing?
I don't think we're going back. I think we're going forward. Would you agree with that?
I would agree
Yeah.
with that. Because we're,
Right, but that would be the new rate. That would just be the new rate moving forward.
I think, Philip, you're saying it's roughly $1 million for this wage increase for this particular one?
if we went, fully loaded with whichever Evergreen option they came with, I mean, it'd be a
Roughly a
2 point
million.
something mil.
Well, should we account for, we just did, what, 600 and, almost 700,000 with the 5.5% increase? 600 and change in January? That'd be 600, it's over 600 in January. We're talking about another million in whenever we do this one, and then we got another $750,000 or roughly in January that's being proposed. So we're looking at a $2.5 million increase in our payroll over the 12-month period. So.
You are, but that that's really 2 years of increases.
Well, it's in it's going to be,
It's in two-
it's baked into our run rate in we have to cover it in that
It's
fiscal year.
fiscal '27.
Yeah, we have to cover it all in that fiscal year.
Yeah, but one of them happened in '26. But I think you're saying cover both of, I think Scott is saying cover 2 years of increase capture that amount of revenue.
I think you're saying the 7.1 increase because of Evergreen and the 1.1 increase because of what we've got baked in the budget.
That would be $1.8 million is what we're proposing for increases in the fiscal year.
So not,
sorry, yeah,
not going
within a
back
year.
to the one that just
No.
happened. I thought you just said the one
Well,
that just
you know,
happened in
again, I
January.
don't know how we're covering, we don't have revenue increase to cover that one that we just did, but if we're saying, look, we
Yeah,
can always
okay.
see how this models out.
Yeah, so that looks like, I mean, just year over year, it looks like even with Evergreen baked in and no incentives and the rate changing on January 1st, that looks like about $1 million increase from this year to next year.
In the run rate, that doesn't make, I'm not tracking on that one. Because
Because
if we did,
Evergreen's 800-ish.
yeah,
That's fully loaded 800,
is it 800?
yes.
Yeah.
That's what's in here.
What percentile is that?
That's a 60.
60 percentile. I think the first one was 60 percentile.
Yes.
I thought it was like
Dead
880.
issue for me if it's 60.
We're just grabbing dollars to get to a concept right now. That
So
that 800 is
the to-
going to change.
The total personnel
Whether we
cost,
go up on.
that would just be salary. The
percentage or-
total personnel cost would be $1.5 million.
That's Evergreen
That's
plus fringes, plus overtime, plus incentives.
yes. No incentives.
No incentive.
No
No
incentives,
merit for
and then
one
COLA and merit
So
in January.
Are we saying incentives will be put into that'll be an offset, I think, is that?
And
Say that again, about incentives?
I'm just asking, what do we do about the incentives?
Or
Yeah,
whether
I'm
that's
coming,
gonna-
if our base in '27 is, I'm coming up with about 700, a little over 700 for the next January increase, but maybe I'm off.
But the total personnel cost, if you look at the total personnel cost, we're projecting that we're going to land with fringes at $12 million this year. And then we're all in without incentives at 13.5. So that's about a 1.5 increase.
I think I'm hearing to potentially add a placeholder for incentives, and then work backwards what the millage increase would be to cover that
That
amount.
plus the,
Yeah,
And the new
yeah,
model.
And I just look at things a little differently because we may be 13.5 in the fiscal '27, but there's a difference between where we land and what our run rate is. Our run rate's higher than that going into the next fiscal year because we only got a half-year impact of that raise. So it's close enough. Use 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, whatever.
Directionally, am I correct? We're going to take, and this is all subject to change based on the admin committee's review of all of this, but for the time being, we're going to plug in the recommendation from Evergreen as it stands. We're going to add fringes, we're going to add overtime, we're going to add the incentives as proposed by the chiefs, and we're going to work out the amount of millage increase necessary to cover that amount going forward. As that gets changed, as you will work through the issue, we will continue to adjust the millage to match whatever that amount ends up being.
And
Is
Philip,
that-
you said a mill is 338, so that would be about almost 5 mills.
Is that correct, kind of directionally, what we're going to show in the next budget?
Show it. Yeah.
So I guess the admin committee will talk about the percentiles, right?
Yes. All of this, I think, is,
And incentives.
I know we can do it later, but we're completely ignoring everything that everybody said to us, like the past few weeks. If we just stay with 60.
I think if you account for all that I've just accounted for, that I think you're talking about a fairly minor adjustment up or down in the grand scheme of, I think we're capturing the large bulk of it, subject to tweaking.
I think it's about 150,000. It's not.
Yeah. So,
I just don't want us to lose picture.
but we will refine that through the committee and through recommendation.
Just don't want us to lose focus on the big picture, and that's taking care of our employees.
So that, I think that answers for millage adjustment, minus the, so kind of still on my list is borrowing for beach and/or groins. Right now, we have built-in paying cash for the beach sand and borrowing for the groins. Leave it that way, adjust it,
So leave it.
Yeah.
leave it. Everybody good? Last one on my list, and it's really just a, I mean, I don't think it matters, and I think it's going to be talked about later, but the marina parking lot, how that's done. Right now, we're showing it as paid for by the city, continuing to accept the overage from the restaurant. There's a concept out there to wipe both of those out. We'll leave it unless we hear otherwise, but
Leave it as a city expense.
yes, unless you will tell me when
That's
you're
what's
ready
in
to
here now.
debate it. That's what's in here now. City expense. I don't think so.
It would be a city expense anyway, right? Because it's already accounted for.
It's not going to, yeah, it's not going to change the net on the budget.
Yeah,
That's
it
how it's
could.
presented. I think until I think what Philip, you're saying, until it's approved, let's leave it the way it is.
Yeah, Rusty, it could be that the expense
think
goes
you're a
away,
big fan
but
of
the
that
revenue also goes away.
Right, exactly.
That's the other way to do it.
So we leaving as is for
Leaving
now?
as
or-
is.
Leave as is
But at
until.
some point, we'll have a discussion in council, I guess, and vote on whether that's.
Yes,
And then you
correct.
can decide where you want to do, but the budget impact would be zero from it, the way it's
Yep.
in the budget now, and what you're proposing to do.
I think that's all that's on my list. Any other big directional questions?
Douglas, again, I would add this franchise fee to our list.
Okay.
I think that is in the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially that we could put straight into the beach preservation. Easy to make a
Which one is
case
that?
with that franchise fee on the beach.
Well, should we be looking at some of these?
Yes, thank you.
We haven't talked about the beach yet, and I don't know, we're,
No, I think it's- we can talk about beach. That's on page 25. I think that's your 25.
well, can we just, can we go to page 18 for just a minute? Deborah? Or I guess it's 6 on the big numbers and it's 18 on the packet.
Okay.
So if we go out to like the 20, I know we're way out in 2035, but it's not as far, this one was far in front of us, and now it's upon us, and the next one's coming. Where it shows the negative fund balances, can we adjust that so they don't go negative? And I think that on the next, page 21 on the graphs, I think the reality is, I think these were, you said they were one-sided entries on the presentation before. I don't know if they're still there, but I think we've got to show what would happen to the other funds. I don't know that we actually have enough money to cover it in the other funds by then.
Right, so the beach fund is the one that goes negative, and we wanted to show that so that we could come up with a game plan on how to address it. Of course, we can transfer money from our tourism funds to this beach fund, if that's what we want to do to address the negative fund balance, but
I think for
As you could-
presentation purposes, we've got to show, we can't show the, I mean, I wouldn't show the one side. We've got to, the reality is that these other funds, in order, it basically quantifies the issue that we're up against here.
So it wouldn't, I mean, I guess from practical application, we just wouldn't spend the money. If we did not have the money, I don't think that it would be realistic to show every other, we just wouldn't do the project at that rate.
Right, because we've done that in the past, and that's not what you wanted to see, so,
Oh, I mean,
We-
I wanted to see both sides of the transaction. I mean, to present one side of the transaction, I think is just not something, I mean, I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but.
what,
If you
spending
were-
the money? Because that's what this is spending the money.
Right, but it takes us into a negative fund balance, which is not, we can't go negative.
Right, but the only other way to do, the not go negative is to transfer it, and if you look to the line right above it, there's not even enough money to transfer.
You're making my point.
Yeah, so that's
I
what I'm
think we've
saying.
got, I think we've got to
There's-
show, we've got to show, if we're going to show the expense in here, that we've got to, the money's got to come from somewhere. Either, this is where I think council has to say, do we go back to that list and start increasing our parking fees? Do, you know, if we're going to put
This
this,
could correct itself, though.
yeah, if we're going to put this in the budget model, we can't depict that we're going to go negative 14 million and then still have 8 million in our funds elsewhere. I don't think that's an accurate presentation.
That is right, so we need to come up with some revenue to cover that,
Or debt.
or debt.
Yeah.
So
Or grants.
how does council want to see this?
I'd
30,
prefer
this
not
20.
to see negative fund balances.
Okay, so how do you want to cover the negative fund balance? Do you want to cover it through debt, or do you want to cover it through increased taxes? Do you want to cover it through grants that we may or may not get? Or I need to show, some direction on how you
Well, we
want to
just
cover
made
it.
changes, right? So we've talked about a couple changes. So the money that was coming out of tourism funds to fund the general fund in your analysis here will go away. So you're going to have more funds in your tourism funds to fund that negative balance. In addition to that, we talked about pushing that out 1 year, right?
Pushing
The
the beach?
Because we said we're going to go from 8 years to 9 years based on
Okay.
the saving. So when you do all that, you'll have enough funds in your tourism fund to make up any difference. And I suggest you transfer it at this point until we say something different. But at least cover it with what is available in the other funds.
Okay.
So the nourishment will show up in 2036, based on what we're doing
And
now.
that's what we said, I think, yeah.
Yep.
9 years, I think.
9 years.
Okay, we can do that.
Douglas, what else? Anything
So that's all I have.
pending?
That's all I have on my list.
I got 2 requests I'd like to make. Sorry to keep you here. Could you, this is what you did, I think, in the last year's budget. Can you show the fund balances before transfers on your pages? I think you go revenue, expenditures, transfers in, transfers out, and then the net. And I think that would be helpful. You've done that before, and that way we can show where fund balances, the revenue and expenses are actually widening and not being covered by transfers. And I can give you the pages on that. And also, in previous packets, you've showed the personnel expenses as a percentage of general fund revenues. And if we can put that back in the presentation, I think that would be very helpful. And then the growth rates of revenues and growth rates of expenses, so that we can see the trends going forward. And then there was one schedule that we used to have. It was the department by spend, source, and fund use schedule. That was in prior year packets, and I didn't see it in this packet. So that way we can see what we're spending on each department and where the funds are actually coming from.
Is the third one we've done before? I don't recall that one.
Which one was the third one?
Growth rate?
Yeah, that was on
He's
your.
just talking about on the personnel, you're talking about on the personnel page, right?
Yeah, you had some growth rates or
Yeah,
rates
on the
in the
personnel.
funds.
Okay.
Yeah, this page was really helpful last year.
So,
Anything else,
Good.
Deborah?
so we've got draft 2 to come out. Admin committee has some work to do. So we need another budget workshop, obviously, but if we kind of did what we did this month, April 8th, the day you're out.
I am not here.
Yeah. That's spring break week, right?
Yep.
And I'm not here.
Oh, you're not
the-
here the week after?
The week after.
Fine.
I could do the,
Huh? That's funny, Nicole.
You here April 1st?
yes,
We can do it April 1st.
that week prior.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So that's 3 weeks. Deborah, you good?
I'm sorry.
That's 3 weeks from now? You're good?
Yeah. The way
Well-
this new model works is it kind of changes pretty easily.
Because the
So-
only admin committee will still be bouncing
Working on
around
wages.
on Evergreen, but that's
Oh.
fine. We can go to second draft without that, certainly.
When is
They're
their
the
meeting?
7th, or the 6th, actually, yeah.
They're the 6th.
I think we moved it up to Monday.
6th of,
Yeah, just the, yeah, it was the 7th, now it's the 6th.
6th of April, gotcha.
Yep.
So we're April 1st, 1 to 3? Is that?
Good.
Well, if that's the only change that they will have after that, like the incentives and the solid number for Evergreen. I mean, once we meet on April 1st and see how that shakes out, then that'll probably put us in a better position so we can see
Yep.
how Evergreen shakes out.
If you, so you, I know you have a number of changes to the budget. I think if you can make those changes whenever you can and get them out to this crowd so that we can have some review time before the 1st would be good.
Will do.
Speaking for me.
And me. I like that. More time the better.
I know. Anything else, Deborah, Douglas, council? Being no further
No, thank
business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Off record at 3:12. Thank you all.